98th episode of PauseCast. It is the 8th of February 2019. My name is Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
Howdy, Mark.
Hey, how you going?
Oh, not too bad. It's been Epic Games' most successful game. It's been a fortnight. How have you been?
Well, I was doing well until that.
I had to make the joke once. Also, you say that you're doing well, but like before we started recording, I want to be clear that you said to me that you had Down with the Sickness stuck in your head.
Yeah.
You sure you're okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. You referenced it, and it was in a movie I watched last night, so it got stuck in my head.
I've been called out. You've owned me. Sorry for getting that stuck in your head.
It's alright, I don't mind.
Nobody deserves that fate.
It's okay. Yeah, actually, that reminds me. I have a strong association between that album by Disturbed and Prince of Persia. Which one was it? The Warrior Within. Because I ended up listening to it while I was playing that game. Oh, that's right, because that's how I first heard about Disturbed, because they actually had them do a couple of tracks for the game.
Oh my god!
Yeah. There's always a link.
Welcome to the Disturbed Deep Lore, where we talk about all of the latest Disturbed news.
I don't even know if this is still alive, but sure.
I can't research this. I can't. We are going down a rabbit hole. We need to talk about video games and not fall down the rabbit hole. Mark, what have you been playing this past fortnight?
Okay, so there's been a couple of new things, actually. I bought Wargroove. I played the Anthem demo. Mm-hmm. And I also played a little bit of more MTG Arena, and I went back to Monster Hunter a little bit.
Ooh.
How about you?
This week, I also played the Anthem demo. I played it with you, in fact.
Yep, I do remember. I was there.
Yep. I've played more Resident Evil 2. I have played Red Dead Redemption 2, and
Nice.
I have played Apex Legends. And I have a lot to say about that, in fact.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear, because like I said to you before the show, I've kind of only seen the name of that game, but I don't know much more about it. So
Well, I'm going to give you the definitive guide to what the hell Apex Legends is.
Sounds great.
So, to start us off,
Yeah.
would you like to talk about Wargroove first? Because that is a game that I personally want to hear more about.
Yeah, so
it's been something I've like had my eyes on in the back burner.
Same. I've had my eye on it for a while. I really like Chucklefish as a publisher and developer. I've talked a lot about Starbound before, which is a game that they made, and I kind of keep an eye on what they're doing, because they tend to make pixel art games, which I just have a real thing for. They've published a few games I've talked about on here. Time Spinner I talked about last year, which was a game I really enjoyed, which they published. And Wargroove is one that I believe they've been developing in-house, and it just got published recently, and it's kind of a modern take on the Advance Wars series gameplay, which honestly fills a niche that's been missing for ages. I don't know when the last Advance Wars game was, but I used to really enjoy them.
I think that was the DS era in which the last Advance Wars game was released.
It was like 11 years ago or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a gritty reboot too. It was kind of weird. I think it was Advance Wars Days of Ruin, and I played that game, and I did enjoy it quite a good deal. And then I think that was actually maybe even my first exposure to Advance Wars, and I went back and played the old GBA games, and the tonal difference is very noticeable there.
Yeah, they were very lighthearted from the first ones, from what I remember, but it was a while ago. So
yeah, it feels like kind of a Valkyria Chronicles kind of situation. Like that's a very lighthearted war strategy game.
Yeah, definitely. But there hasn't really been other strategy games quite like Advance Wars, I think.
Right, because the main way that it works is like you could produce units. It's not a Fire Emblem where you have a fixed number of units and you're leveling them up and bringing them through the whole campaign.
Yeah, or an XCOM, which is kind of similar.
Yeah, it's a situation where you actually have to like manufacture your units. It's kind of like the real-time strategy formula taken to turn-based strategy, I guess is the best way to think about that
Yeah,
almost.
definitely. There are obviously tactics games where you get new units as the game goes on, but not typically during a battle, and that is the thing that is in the Advance Wars DNA that Wargroove has, and it means that your tactics have to change quite a lot from what I'm used to with other games.
Yeah.
First off, I just have to say it has gorgeous pixel art, as is I kind of expect from a Chucklefish game. It's what they do very well. There's one of the um, commanders is a dog called Caesar, and they have the cutest animations. It's the best. Um, but yeah, it's been really nice to finally scratch my Advance Wars itch. Honestly, they've got the
Yeah.
same sort of like split screen fight animations when two units encounter each other. You know, where it sort of zooms in, you see, oh, there's so many here, and there's fewer here because they've lost some health, and the attacking ones charge over to the other ones, and they have a fight. So it's there's a mix of nostalgia and I don't know what else, but it shares so much mechanically with Advance Wars, but definitely looks and feels different in terms of the setting. Like it's a fantasy game. It's
Right.
not like the same. Like you don't have tanks and stuff this time. You have um, spear fighters and knights and catapults and attack dogs, which are more like scouts, but still. Um, so the feel of that setting is very different, but it's really satisfying to be able to play something that feels like an Advance Wars game.
Right.
The way it sort of works is you spend your gold, the one set of resource that you have, to create units at a one of however many special buildings called a barracks that you have, and the more villagers you capture by knocking their health down to zero and then entering them with a unit that can capture them, the more income you get each turn to make new units. So you're sort of gaining ground and taking away your opponent's ground as the game goes on in order to get the advantage on resources and then overwhelm them. And try to do it in as few turns as possible to get the best rating at the end. The
Mm.
game gives you a rating based on the number of turns you take, which I thought I was okay at when I was doing like the really early missions where it's really obvious how to do it as quickly as possible. But as soon as I didn't have to do it as quickly as possible, I went right back to my old be cautious and safe and definitely win, but don't do it very quickly thing. So I've been getting like C's and stuff. I'm sure I'll be able to do better when I go back later, but I haven't yet been very good at minimal number of turns winning. It makes it feel kind of different to the sort of puzzle type thing I've described like XCOM as before, because there's that additional freedom of you can make more or fewer units depending on how much land you've captured and what units should you make instead of just these are your pieces, how can you best use them. So I'm
Right.
still growing to understand that. They haven't introduced every type of unit yet. So, like I know there's flying units and I don't know how they interact with other units. I know there's naval units, I don't know how they're going to interact with other units. I haven't encountered any of that yet. It's really interesting how there's a wagon unit which can transport some smaller units a long way along a road. So as you're making units, way back behind your front lines, if they're going to take 6 turns to reach the fighting, they're not that useful. But if you've got this supply line of you're holding the road and the wagons going along it, you can get them to the front lines a lot faster. It's really interesting just how different the decisions I have to make are to the other tactics games I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are similar, like, this piece of land has got a defensive bonus, so being there is good. But there's also stuff like each unit has a criterion under which it will deal more damage. So, for example, the spear fighters will deal more damage if they're adjacent to an allied unit of the same type. So you might be able to do more damage and take less damage if you don't attack with every unit and you use some of them to line up critical hits for other units. Like the dog units, they'll deal critical damage to an enemy unit if it is already adjacent to another one of your dog units. So you might move the first one up, not attack with it. Move the second one up and attack with that, and it might be enough to push them right over the edge so they don't deal any damage back to you. So it's interesting. There's definitely layers to it. I know the game has a puzzle mode where it puts you in a complex scenario and challenges you to beat it in the one turn that you have, which I'm interested to check out because I feel like that's going to be a little more familiar to the sort of feeling I've gotten from other tactics games. But
I think the specific one that you're thinking about even there is maybe even just Into the Breach.
yes, of course. Yes, yes, yes. That is definitely a puzzle tactics game.
It looks like this game has a hell of a long tail too. Like I'm looking at the Steam page right now, which first of all, I highly recommend doing, if only for the fact that there is a GIF of Caesar the dog rolling around at the bottom of the Steam page.
Oh, Caesar's so good.
It's extremely cute. But also, I spotted that there is like custom maps, cutscenes, and campaigns that you can make with in-game editors.
Yep.
Like you could actually do full-on new campaigns and content.
Yeah, I haven't done that myself, but I've seen their dev blogs as they was building the game on how they were doing that. And I've seen as you play through the main campaign, like that's built, I believe, in this cutscene and map editor that they've got available to you. So like you could make something as complex as the main campaign, is my understanding. Which is pretty fucking cool, honestly.
Yeah, that means that the game potentially has like I said, like it potentially has a long tail. Like people could be playing this game for ages and ages and never run out of stuff to do.
Like you could,
because people are making more stories.
You could fan fiction your own sequel if you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Like or prequel
within the game.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool, and I'm excited to see what people make with it. I don't know how much I'll put into it. Might be a lot. I just don't know.
It could be interesting
really
to see
cool
like
be there.
Campaigns from the other character's perspective in the main story too. Like you could have them intersect.
Yeah.
If you wanted to write your own like custom campaigns there, that'd be really cool.
Definitely. One other thing I want to mention because I thought it was a really nice touch. I said there's dog units. Unlike the other units, when a dog unit loses health, the dogs don't die, they run away. I just thought that was really nice because in particular I know that having lost a pet is a really common traumatic experience even for young people, so it's kind of nice that they go out of their way to not remind you of that while you're playing this game, and they still have the cute dog units. So I thought that was really cool.
This sounds like a really cool game.
Yeah.
I am glad that it is really good, and I will probably have to check this out because it's reasonably priced.
What is it, $25 I think, or $30?
30 New Zealand, yeah.
I think I got a discount for owning Starbound or something like that automatically on Steam.
Oh, okay. So that's nice. It just has a great aesthetic. I think that this is a pretty solid looking game.
Definitely feels that way. I mean, I went on initially to play like half an hour of it, and I think I played 4 or 5 hours in my first session.
Wow.
Since going back, I haven't played as long sessions. The missions can take quite a while if you have all the animations on and everything, so it can be tiring to do one mission, I've found. Mm-hmm. But no, it's a really fun game. I know it's also got like asynchronous multiplayer, which I haven't delved into at all, but like, if you have a friend in a different time zone you want to play with, you can do your move and they get notified when it's ready for them to do a move again. You can close the game and have Steam running and you'll just get a notification saying that Wargroove is ready for you to have your turn.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
it's like chess
really
by email, but Wargroove.
Oh my god, I remember similar stuff. I don't know that I remember chess by email, but you know what? I remember. It's Words with Friends. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, shit. This seems good.
Yeah, I've really liked it. And I've still got a lot more to discover. Like I said, I haven't discovered a lot of the units. One faction entirely out of the 4 I haven't encountered yet. So there's still 3 commanders I haven't seen there as well. So every faction has got their own version of each unit, and they're not palette swaps. They're all like their own sprites. They seem to all share the animations, but they're very visually distinct. So it's real cool. And there's a kind of a thematic crossover with Starbound in that the Floran race is both here and in Starbound. So if you played Starbound and you liked the plant people, they're in Wargroove.
Shoot. All right. Yep.
And they have plant dogs.
Sold. Give me the plant dogs. I am 100% there for that. I think I've talked about how I could never get into Starbound, but it seemed really neat for the people who actually, did get into it.
I've definitely played a lot of that game and enjoyed it. How much of the game have I played? It's like one of the only games I've bought and not regretted in early access. I've played 252 hours according to Steam. I think that's the most I've put into any game on Steam.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, part of that was playing it through early access, so every time they'd like reset stuff, I'd start from scratch.
Fair enough.
So that's about all I've got on Wargroove. Like I said, I haven't found everything yet. You're saying you've played a scary game?
Yes. I have played Resident Evil 2. This, for the uninitiated, is a remake of the original Resident Evil 2, which was published in the 1990s. And it's been transformed into a kind of modern survival horror, third-person shooter kind of situation.
Oh, third person. For some reason, I thought it was first person.
So Resident Evil 7, which is the most recently released chronologically, that was a first-person shooter.
Okay.
But Resident Evil has a lineage of third-person titles so 7 was a break from that.
I think I confused them with the arcade House of the Dead or something games.
Oh, maybe.
Because I haven't played Resident Evil games because I get scared really easily.
So here's a quick history lesson on the way that Resident Evil has worked as a series. Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, and 3 were all made with a fixed camera kind of approach. So you would enter a room and you would always have that one camera angle in that room. And it was designed to give it a cinematic feel. If you played, I think Silent Hill does the same sort of style. Which,
I've played Silent Hill. Right.
You definitely have played Silent Hill. So it has those fixed camera locations, and so you have to navigate through rooms on that, and it controlled with something called tank controls.
As in unwieldy?
As in unwieldy, and as in in order to turn, you have to stop and rotate, and then you can move forward.
Cool.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound fun.
I mean, part of it was just an artifact of the time.
Okay.
This was an era where we did not have analog sticks.
Okay.
This was DualShock 1 era. Or sorry, not even DualShock, just original PlayStation controller era.
What it looked like without analog sticks?
Yeah, it was just D-pad. You had your D-pad and your face button. And I think I might be wrong. I don't know if there were triggers yet. I don't know if you had your R2 and L2. That was that era of games. Then Resident Evil 4 came out, and that was the first third-person shooter. And
as in with a camera that follows the character?
Yes. It follows behind the character, and so that was a big change for the series, and Resident Evil 4 is generally pretty well liked. Resident Evil 5 and 6 continued that trend. But
adding more giraffes, right?
Yeah, we started getting some giraffes in Resident Evil 6. But it started trending more towards action. Kind of an artifact, I think, of the third-person design. It enabled better controls, so they kind of had to start putting more into it, almost, to make it challenging and scary. I think is maybe how that design philosophy kind of had to evolve. And then Resident Evil 7 switched perspectives again, bringing you to the first-person perspective. So this is a remake of one of those games with the fixed camera layout and that old school style of controls remade into something more like Resident Evil 4, where you had modern controls and aiming and shooting mechanics.
Was there not aiming and shooting in the first 4 games?
There you would aim with just like your body, and there was still shooting and stuff, but like
It was sort of 2D aiming.
yeah, it's 2D aiming basically. And it wasn't very good. It was not easy to like land shotgun shots or anything like that.
Right.
It was just kind of an artifact of the design again. It's just kind of awkward to play.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a smoothed over version of that. It looks amazing, first and foremost. I think I said that when I talked about the demo last episode. It looks amazing. The lighting is really, really gorgeous.
It's a photo. It's not stylized at all, is it? It's a photorealistic.
Yes,
I suppose horror tends to be. Horror doesn't tend to be stylized because it always takes away from that sort of scariness.
I think you can stylize horror very easily, though, is the thing. I don't think you have to necessarily go for realism, but most horror games, I think, do tend towards it. I think you can still be plenty scary and still have style.
You need to have really good scary sounds and stuff, I think.
Yeah, you'd have to have really good like sound design and monster design, and you still have to create a sense of immersion in the world. Like, horror games always feel really, really immersive. And it's part of what can lead you to getting scared, is because you are just invested in the world, and you are not like, you have the blinders on, basically. You're not paying attention to anything outside of that, or distracted by anything outside of it. It is just plain scary.
Yep.
We are now going to get into spoiler territory for Resident Evil 2. I am warning you about this because there is some stuff that happens from a mechanical perspective that I am about to spoil. It happens about a third of the way into the game. So if you are not interested in hearing that or want to skip ahead, I'll probably be talking about this for the next, let's safely say, 2 to 3 minutes. So, about a third of the way into the game, in addition to the regular kind of milieu of zombies, which, by the way, all have random-ish health pools.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so
you can't rely on like, oh, it's 2 shots to the body or something.
Yeah, exactly. It can be, 2 shots to the body on one zombie and they'll fall, but the next one might be 5. Now, apparently these are all predetermined within the game's code, so they're not actually random, but it feels random, which is all that matters.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to think about that as well from like when I'm thinking about speedrunning, because that means that those zombies are learnable, and you could learn like, oh, okay, so this zombie, because it goes down in 2 hits, I can take care of that and not lose too much time and have like, I can be more safe, where this one takes a whole lot of bullets, so I want to avoid it.
That's interesting. I wonder if that had any impact on their decision to go that way.
I don't think it would have. But I think that is nonetheless something interesting to think about and consider. So in addition to that, you now have another character that's introduced about a third of the way into the game. And he was introduced in the original too. And his name is Mr. X. Okay. Now, Mr. X, aside from having a real dumb name, is a tank. He cannot be stopped. He is attracted to noise, so if he hears you running or shooting your gun, Mr. X is going to come running, and he is going to find you.
Is this just like a dude in a suit, or?
Yeah,
sounds like a dude in a suit.
He's a big dude in a trench coat and a fedora, and he's very tall, and he just has kind of a gray face.
Cool.
Yeah. I think his name is very dumb, but also very smart because he misdirects your attention. It may be harder for you to, for example, concentrate on clearing out a room or finishing a puzzle if you hear menacing footsteps just outside your room.
So does he have quite loud footsteps or recognizable or something?
Yes, he has loud and recognizable, like, stomping footsteps. And you can hear them through different rooms, and so you can hear when he's coming.
Okay.
It is a really effective mechanic. It is really good at misdirecting your attention. It is fucking scary, and it means that, like, using your firearms, which up to that point has, no impact, using your firearms becomes a much more dangerous option. So running becomes something that you kind of want to do more often to avoid the ire of Mr. X. He can come into any room that is not explicitly a safe room. So safe rooms will tend to have save points and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't come into those, but he can come into any other room in the giant police station that you are in at the beginning of this game. It is fucking terrifying. It adds a really, really good sense of tension and I don't know why I said and. It just adds a really good sense of tension to the game. It gives you some sort of constant threat. And like I said, it makes using firearms a little bit more of a conscious decision. You actually have to think about, okay, what is my way out if Mr. X comes a-running? How can I then escape him?
So I suppose if you're in a dead-end room or something, then it's quite vulnerable.
Exactly. Or if you don't have a key to get out, and there's only one exit, then that might be a bad time to use your firearms. Because he's listening. I will also say, though, I've seen videos in which Mr. X's footsteps have been replaced with the sound file for DMX's X Gon' Give It To You, which is very funny, and I will have to find and link one of those videos because it is deeply funny to hear muffled X Gon' Give It To You, and then he bursts through the door. And it's great.
And maybe I don't play scary games, but I always think with things like that, I'd kind of want to just run at the scary thing and see what happens, just so that I can get it over with and know what I'm afraid of, so I'm not afraid of something unknown.
So I actually did that when,
Yeah?
So the first time that you escape from him, there is an enemy in a room that was previously safe and is no longer safe.
Okay.
And so I used my firearms, and then I heard him come running. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for this. So I shot him a whole bunch, and I did actually knock him, so it seems like you can knock him out for a little bit.
Oh.
But he doesn't stay down. He will just kind of like take a knee and recover for a little bit.
Right.
So you could theoretically make some space, but that took up a solid chunk of my ammo.
Yeah.
So needless to say, in actual gameplay, I will not be doing that. Because that is too high risk a move. I'm already kind of struggling for ammo a little bit, so not
So you can't
exactly
afford to
ideal.
waste a bunch. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. I can't afford to waste a bunch on Mr. X, who is going to try and give it to me and is not going to succeed. All right, that's all I have to say about RE2. Mr. X is a really, really good mechanic. Let's talk about Anthem.
Yeah, so last weekend was the Anthem Open Beta demo, which we played together on PC, and I played with my brother and my flatmate on PS4.
Yep.
And it's right out there, it was a bad demo.
Holy shit, it was a miserable demo.
There were a lot of problems.
I feel really sorry for anybody at BioWare at the moment, like having to see the feedback to that demo, because woof, it was rough, and I know that there was very limited things that they could do. Because my understanding of the beta build is that it was 6 weeks behind current like master builds, basically. So first of all, that I don't know if that means that the game hasn't gone gold yet, or is it if it's just a lot of day one patch prep, which I have to imagine is the case because that game is getting printed onto discs and released very soon.
I've heard that a bunch of the bugs that were present in the demo are already fixed.
Yeah, I have heard as much as well, but like the showing of the demo was still not at all what I would expect from a beta that they were inviting everyone to play, you know?
Yeah. So I mean, there were kind of there was a couple of different sort of issues. I think one was there were a bunch of bugs, but also it seemed like they chose some confusing missions as the way to give examples of this game. And there were some other weird demo design decisions, like lots of tutorials for everything I don't care about, but I had no idea what the controls were when I went to play. There were no tutorials about flying your robot suit around or anything like that. It just a bunch of things felt kind of backwards. The way the demo worked for anyone who didn't play it is you start at level 10, can go up to level 15. There are 4 different classes of robot suit javelins, they call them in the game. You start with one. Once you hit level 12 in the demo, which the missions are scaled so that once you've done the first 3 missions, you will hit level 12. You should be able to choose one other one that you also get to try in the demo. But there was a bug where about half the time at the end of a mission you got 0 experience. So when we tried it on PC, we finished the missions and didn't hit level 12 because the last mission we got 0 experience.
Yep.
Which meant, I mean, I, having played the demo on PS4, I had tried another one of the javelins already, but Jess, you decided reasonably, I think, to give up on the demo at that point, right?
Yeah, I did. So I only got to play the Ranger, which seems like a kind of jack of all trades class.
Yeah, that's how they've been talking it up.
Kind of boring. So Ash got her hands on the Storm for the final mission, and she had a really good time with the Storm.
So did I on PS4. That's the one that I tried out as well.
Yeah, it's like a magic caster class. So,
yeah, you do a lot of hovering, and it's all like elemental attacks.
So I didn't get to see anything like that or any of the other javelins. I just got to see the Ranger stuff, and you know, even bearing in mind the caveat that this javelin is the least interesting, and there are 3 others that it wants to funnel you towards. In fact, the main game, once you hit level 2, is going to give you your second javelin. Like, you're going to start with your basic ranger, and then you'll actually have access pretty much immediately to a storm or to I don't know what the other 2 names are.
Colossus and the fast one.
Colossus and Interceptor.
Interceptor, yeah, that's it.
There we go. Thank you.
On PS4, we actually had a really good run of it because it was me who picked the Storm, my brother who picked the Interceptor, and my flatmate who picked the Colossus. So we actually got to play with all 3 of the other classes together.
Yeah.
So the PS4 run went a lot better for me. I definitely did enjoy the combat a lot, playing with people I knew in those different classes. But the bugs really held it back. There were times when enemies would disappear. One of the missions had a puzzle which we couldn't figure out. My brother had to Google the answer, and we didn't know how people figured it out until the next day when someone found, oh, there are actually like hidden signs you can see that give you the answer. But we just didn't find them after a long time of searching. And my brother was talking about how it was also, once he knew the solution, it was really hard to, while playing through with strangers he wasn't be able to communicate with, to get it solved, because while he was trying to put the 3 different pieces in the right positions, the other 3 players who didn't know what they were doing were going around changing them all. So I don't know why they picked that mission in particular as one of the ones to showcase the game. It seemed like an odd choice.
The other thing that seemed like a really odd choice in terms of like mission selection was the 3rd mission, which has an atrocious boss fight at the end of it. It is just so... It is boring and it is unbalanced. There is like constant spawns of additional enemies, and you don't really have a good way to deal with like groups of those. And so they just keep spawning at an unreasonable rate without any downtime to like actually let you attack the boss. So you're just kind of like slowly chipping away at it, and it feels miserable.
That fight actually went much better when we played it than the time that I did it on PlayStation. So you saw the easy mode of that, sort of. Took like twice as long when we were doing it on PlayStation.
Yeah.
To be fair, the part that you didn't get to play, so if you finish those 3 missions, you get to do a stronghold. That finishes with a much more interesting and fun boss fight.
Yeah. Like, it seems like something that shouldn't have been missed, though, in picking that mission. Like, oh, let's make sure that the boss fight is actually good. I don't know why they chose those missions. They didn't do that. Because, like, my basis for boss fights, right, is, like, Destiny. Where Destiny has very, like, clear phases that the boss can be in. So, like, there is you'll knock them down through one phase, and then, you know, they'll spawn additional enemies, and you'll have to sweep those up. And then the boss will be ready to be attacked again. And usually there's... In some of the strike ones, there's, like, different mechanics and stuff. But the general gist there is that you have, you know, a flow to the combat. You go boss, adds, boss, adds, boss, adds, and then finish the boss.
No, I know what it means now because you explained to me after I asked when we were playing the game, but adds means additional enemies?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't think I will ever use that sort of online game slang.
Yeah,
I've never gotten into them.
As far as I am aware, the term originated with like games like WoW.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It's interesting you compare it to Destiny, and that's been sort of at the back of my mind as well. I was, I think, the most excited person out of my friends and family on seeing the E3 2017 teaser of Anthem. I haven't been following it closely because I don't like spoilers, and this sort of game seems to... The community seems to always have an expectation of knowing everything that's coming up, so I figure if I don't follow it closely, then I won't know that. I'll get to experience it in-game if I play it. So I haven't been following it super closely, but like Destiny, right, it's a shooter with a really core online component, and it's got a loot-based progression as well as experience-based.
Yes.
I felt significantly more excited about this than I did about Destiny. I think that's because I just have more trust for BioWare than Bungie. I think that's just because I really like the Mass Effect games, honestly. It might not be because it's deserved, but I think that's just where I'm at. So I
think you also tend towards third-person games. Like,
I guess that's accurate.
I don't think I've ever heard you talk about, in talking with me, I don't think you have ever talked about a first-person shooter with me.
Well, I don't tend to play shooters as part of that. I have played chunks of Red Dead Redemption 2 in first person and thought that was really cool. I tend to play Fallout games in first person, although I really appreciate the fact that you can go into third person. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting that this game has got the inverse perspective of Destiny, where in the social hub you're first person and in the missions you're third person, whereas Destiny is the inverse of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been wary of that online component, especially knowing if I buy it on release but no one else I know does, I'll either have the option of playing it on my own, which it wasn't really made for, or playing it with random people, which I tend to try to avoid. So I've been kind of conflicted about what to do. But there's one part of the demo Like, I enjoyed the combat, but there's one part of the demo that I just really loved. And that was the customization system that we just got to see a very little bit of. So, you can customize the appearance of your robot suit. Sounds like fun.
Yes.
And it seems
is really good.
Yeah,
it's a really good system.
Really well done. As well as...
like,
yeah, go on.
It is probably the best part of that demo. I'm going to be real. Like, I think the customization is, number one, the thing I spent the most time on.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, the thing I had the most fun doing.
Yeah.
Which is, I hate to say it, BioWare, but that's a pretty strong condemnation of what you've done with Anthem here. That I had more fun putting coats of paint on my robot than I did playing your game. That's not great in my books. That customization system, though, is thorough. It is robust as hell.
So as well as swapping out the appearance of different parts, like what your head looks like, what your arms look like, each part, so like your primary hard material, your secondary soft material is how they use them, how they refer to them. You choose a texture, like, is this painted metal? Is it hard plastic? Is it worn rubber? And you choose a color, which you can just, pick hue, saturation, brightness. And it
unless you're choosing like metal.
So there are the metal ones which are unpainted, and you don't have. Oh, you have some options for color there. But
there are quite a number of color options there.
It's just not the
but
same.
It's not as
creator
it's
color.
not an RGB system like the paint is.
But that was a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to doing more of that, because honestly, so on the weekend of the demo, just by chance, I was looking for an old business card in my old wallet, and I found $120 in cash.
Yeah.
And I've kind of decided that having found that feels like if I buy this game, it's kind of paid for already. And also, I've accepted that I'm willing to pay for a robot dress-up game. And everything else is just a bonus. If other people I know get it and I can play it with them, cool. If not, I'll still enjoy it for a while. So I am actually, although it was a very bad demo, I've decided I'm going to get Anthem for PS4 on release.
Okay. See, I am very much the opposite here. Like, I love the robot dress-up game part, but I also got my fill of that. I don't need to play more robot dress-up, and I certainly don't have the money to spend on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the most expensive sort of game you can get. Like, this isn't a $20 game when it comes out.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what I've established on my own terms is I'm going to watch this game for the next, 6 months. Because there will be updates. There is no way that, there's no way that the game just stays in the state that it is. Because that would be a bad game, for starters. That game is going to evolve a lot from a mechanical and from a loot and from all manner of perspectives. And I am interested in seeing that. I'm interested in seeing where Anthem is in 6 months and if they've managed to make it what I feel like is, a worthwhile game. But right now, I think pretty definitively it is not my thing. I think I need to wait and see on this one. And I think I will encourage other people to do the same.
Yeah, I think that's going to be what a lot of people got out of the demo, is it's not yet in a state where they're ready to buy it. And I totally get that. Like I said, I've decided that in this case, partly because I found some money I had, I'm going to buy a robot dress-up game and just enjoy whatever bonus I get with that. And, if it does turn out to be a much better game 6 months down the line, I'll already have it in that case. But wait and see, I think, is a really reasonable approach in this case. More reasonable than what I'm doing. One other thing I just want to mention, and this actually reflects something you've mentioned in a previous episode, is I can see how this game shares a bunch of combat stuff with Mass Effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much ability driven, with gunfire filling in the gaps between triggering your abilities. But there's some clear shared DNA in terms of like the enemy's health pools. Like armored enemies have a yellow health pool. Shielded enemies have got a blue bar as well as a red bar. This is what Mass Effect did to differentiate a bunch of enemy types. And they've got the same kind of like set up a combo and detonate it with another ability thing as Mass Effect has had, which wasn't very clear at all in the demo. But again, I've heard that's something they're clarifying in the main game when it comes out. So that was interesting to see, because you talked about how you thought Mass Effect Andromeda had been like the precursor to the movement system of Anthem.
Yeah, and I think, the limited amount I have played of that game, because I didn't end up being able to stream it due to technical difficulties. The week prior to doing any streaming, I wanted to make sure that the game was going to run in a stable way on stream, because otherwise, I'm not making watchable content.
Yeah.
And that game does not run in any sort of stable capacity. Even when I've reduced settings, I was still running up against some major, not only frame rate issues, but I was also running up against issues where my GPU was struggling to render frames in time for OBS. So I couldn't capture it and then stream it properly.
You should have seen how it ran on my 4-year-old laptop. I'd hoped it might run okay on my computer because my flatmate just got the game in a bundle with his graphics card when he got it updated recently. So he already owns it, even though he may not end up playing it much or at all. Right. But I initially thought, it runs okay. But then once I played more of it, it does not run okay on my, to be fair, fairly old computer. But the weird thing is, when all the assets were popping in, they were doing it in reverse order. Like, the last thing to load was the ground, or the building that's closest to me, and I was seeing all the buildings behind it load in first. So a lot of the time, I'd finish a loading screen, and then I'd have to sit and wait before I moved, because I didn't know where the walls or the ground would be. Which felt like an odd way to load in assets. Just really weird.
It's probably just some demo weirdness.
Hopefully. I mean, it ran much, much better on the PlayStation, which is what I intend to get on, so...
Yeah. Now, we talked a little bit about the robot suit customization, and you want to talk a little bit about getting creative with games.
Yeah, so having decided that I was happy getting it just as a robot dress-up game kind of made me think about a bit more about how that sort of creative part of games that aren't entirely about creativity is often my favorite part of them. I think I've just come to accept more that it's allowed to be my favorite part of them, I guess. The customization thing here actually reminded me of Spore. Do you remember Spore?
Only through... I've only lived Spore viscerally through Monster Factory.
Oh, yeah. That sounds right.
So I remember Spore insofar as it has appeared on that series.
So Spore was a very, very, very hyped up game that was very, very, very mediocre at best.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, I was really excited for it.
It seems like it is like rife with potential.
Yeah, I still played a bunch of it. Because it turns out that I really liked the creative part of it. Spore is basically a game where you build your own creatures. It's very cartoony, but the similar thing that Anthem reminded me of is how it generates textures. Like, instead of just picking one of a set of textures or one of a set of colors, you would combine them and it would generate a texture, kind of like with Anthem's materials and colors.
Right.
And yeah, I've just realized more and more that that's the part of games that I often enjoy the most. Every time I talk about the XCOM games, I talk about customizing my soldiers and how it's definitely a secondary system in that game, but I spend a lot of time in it and it enhances the game so much. So I've been sort of thinking about how games normally do that, I guess, because often there's like two main ways a game will have a creative outlet. You've got character customization. You're starting a new character in Skyrim or whatever, and that's often like a one-off per character. And you might have multiple characters throughout the course of the game, but you don't typically go and redo this and redo it and redo it and redo it. And then there's stuff with building, so Minecraft, The Sims, Fallout, the more recent Fallout games are the other sort of main way I think you can have a creative outlet in games. And then sort of secondarily stuff like Anthem or Red Dead Redemption 2 have got dress-up minigames, basically.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're combined with character customization like in XCOM. And sometimes they're a bit simpler, like Monster Hunter's Armor System, I'd say is a dress-up game, but it doesn't have the same depth as a lot of them do, because it's linked so hard to stats. You can basically choose the best stats one or the best looking one and then change your color. But if it weren't for that, like if Monster Hunter, your character's appearance didn't change when you changed your armor, I'm sure I would get way less enjoyment out of that game. Way less.
I mean, like there's something special that Monster Hunter does in that regard, where like your armor looks more powerful. Honestly, like there is something about it that makes, like, there's something about the aesthetic of the monster parts that are used that just makes you look and feel more powerful. Those armor sets have practical effects, but I think that's like a major factor there.
Definitely. I really hope that when the expansion comes out, the G-rank versions of armors look different to the high-rank ones. They've done that in a lot of previous games, but it hasn't been consistent, and I'm worried they might not, but I really hope they do.
You know, you just actually made me think of another, like, subgenre of this sort of, like, creativity.
Yeah.
And that is Fashion Souls. Are you familiar with this concept?
That does not ring a bell, no.
Okay, so Fashion Souls is kind of a subgenre of Dark Souls and Bloodborne character creation, in which, like, people are designing for aesthetics.
Yeah.
So rather they're like choosing different armor sets and, you know, mix and matching pieces.
This is what I did when I played.
Yeah, to like create different character aesthetics. With interesting results, I would say. I think there's some potential there, especially with Bloodborne. Like there is a sense to that game's fashion that I really enjoy. But people have done some really interesting stuff with the idea of Fashion Souls. So I feel like that's worth pointing out. It's something that is perhaps not intended by the game's developers.
I think that fits exactly with the sort of thing I'm thinking of. Just the idea that it's okay for your favorite part about a game to be a secondary system.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it's got a secondary thing where the different armors you wear make your character look different, and you get the more enjoyment out of that than another part of the game, that's good and fine. I think I've known for a while I enjoy that sort of thing. I think I've just come to realize more that it's okay to like that the most, even though it's not the highest, like the core of the game.
Yeah. Like I when I'm playing Destiny, for example, Destiny is something that I play around with fashion quite a bit there. Because I figure if my character doesn't look good, you know, I'm not having a ton of fun playing the game. If I look like a mess, it's not my favorite thing in the world. But once I get like the right colors and I get the right design and I get like real invested in the aesthetic, that's the point at which I'm having the most fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like a badass too. Like I look like a badass and I feel like a badass.
I've seen people do neat things with like Fallout games where they've made like a fresh face new character, and as their playthrough goes on, they've updated them to get more scraggly and dirty and just
wastelandified.
Yeah, wastelandified. That's a good word for it.
Word.
Which is a cool creative thing to do in a game like that.
It's a cool word, quote unquote.
It's a neologism.
Sorry?
A neologism.
Never have I ever heard that word before.
Cool. It's a word that means made up word.
Now, how do I know that is not a made up word?
Every word is made up.
Oh, right.
Also, you can Google neologism.
Fair.
It's like neo logo, new word.
Okay. All right.
And there's photo modes as well, I guess, which you've got a lot out of, like in racing simulator games.
Yes, GT Sport is really good. It lets me pose my cars. It lets me do all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Well, with that diversion out the way,
Yeah, you were saying you played that game that I've only heard the name of and I can't remember the name of now.
Apex Legends.
That's it. Yes. Sorry for forgetting the name.
It is okay. So, I have played Apex Legends. Apex Legends is a battle royale game. So, do you remember PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and how I've talked about that game?
Yeah, and Fortnite as well, right?
Yes. Same sort of structure, slightly smaller scale, and it's set in the Titanfall universe. There are a number of things that make this game more interesting than those other battle royales, though.
Are there giant robots?
There are not giant robots this time.
That seems weird when it's set in the...
So it's set in the same universe, and it's by the same developers, but they didn't put Titans in because they were very hard to balance in this sort of context. So instead what they've got going is they actually have abilities on each of the characters.
Because they're like heroes, like Overwatch, right?
Yeah, exactly. So at the start of every match... Actually, let me back this up a little bit further. Each of these matches is played with 60 players, and there are teams... Everyone is in teams of 3. There is no solo or duos mode. It is all teams of 3, and we're going to get to that, because that is actually also a really interesting part of this game. So the way that a match works is once you get put into your team, there's actually a pick phase where everybody is assigned a random order in which they will pick a hero.
So you kind of need a secondary and tertiary hero that you play in case your first 2 picks get chosen.
Exactly, that's not too much. There's not really drastic differences in terms of combat or anything. It's just in terms of abilities. So once you know, like, oh, this is what Pathfinder, the robot, does, he can shoot zip lines, so I can move around a little bit more easily. Cool. And then, I don't know, like, Wraith's ability allows her to disappear for a few seconds at a time. Once you know these sort of, like, basics, which you can pick up just by playing the character for the first time, like, you have your secondary and tertiary, and you can definitely feel out what characters you like the most.
Yeah.
So everybody gets, I think it's probably 10 seconds, and the characters get a little introduction as each player picks.
10 seconds isn't long if it's your first time.
No, but you have a little bit of time to think about it if you are second or third in line. So so each player picks in sequence and locks out that character from the other players. So the first player has 10 seconds and they can pick their character, and you can actually sort of mouse over the character that you want so that, like, your teammates can actually immediately begin to pick around you. And you can only lock them in once it's your turn.
Right, so they can see what you're indicating you would like to use.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Then another difference that this has is, unlike PUBG or Fortnite, where everybody has to individually drop out of the vehicle at the start of the game, in this case it's a dropship, every team has a jump master. The jump master is always the third person to pick. They can also relinquish that role, so if you're playing with a group of friends, and my other friend over here is really good at picking drop locations, we'll just let him handle the drops. You can actually just do that.
Okay.
When you jump, everybody jumps as a squad, and you can all land as a squad. So it really is encouraging team play, like, from your first drop. And then things get more interesting once you hit the ground because there is a smart comms system indicating, like, making it really, really easy for you to just press a button and indicate, I am going here. I am watching this spot. There is an enemy over here. Someone's been here. This sort of like vital communication in a battle royale game. And you never need to use your mic to do it.
Nice.
So, like, you can play with randoms and never say a word to them and still know exactly what is going on because they are indicating, oh, there's an enemy over there. I just saw them. You can see all of this information in real time.
How quick and easy is it to use those signals?
Milliseconds. It is single button presses.
So there's a very limited selection then, I'm guessing?
There is 8, yes. So I believe the exact options that you have are like, I'm going here. We should all go here. I'm watching this area. I'm defending this area. Someone's been here. There is an enemy. There's one more and I can't remember. But like those are all. That's kind of all the information you need almost.
And I guess now that there have been Battle Royale games as a big thing for a while, they've kind of been able to find out what is useful information to give the teammates.
You also have the ability to ping like individual bits of loot. So like you can say, oh, there's armor here. Mm-hmm. There is this type of weapon right here. The ammo that you're looking for is right over here. Mm-hmm. You can ping all that stuff for your teammates. You can call dibs. If someone pings an item that you want, you can just be like, "Oh, it's mine. I can reserve it," and that marker will stay on your screen until you go get it.
That is pretty cool.
It is really cool because it means that game is totally playable without a mic. You can play with randoms. The squad stuff actually works. And it just feels really good.
What platform have you been playing it on, by the way?
I've been playing it on PC. It is also available on Xbox and PS4 and does not require PS Plus to play.
Really? It's an online game on PlayStation that doesn't need PS Plus?
Yep.
Shit.
Yeah. So a lot of people probably going to be checking this out.
Oh, that's right. You were telling me that it's free to play before the show, weren't you?
Yes, it is free to play. And it feels incredibly polished. This is probably, like, first of all, I think it was the smoothest day one experience I've ever had with this, like, genre.
Nice.
Everything kind of worked out of the box, and it was great. And a lot of, like, pro players have been saying that it's really good as well. Like, and they are having those positive experiences, like, even with randoms. Things are good here. And that's not to mention, like, some other really, really cool aspects of the game. Let's talk about characters, for example. Okay. There are no white men in the default character selection.
Default? Is there an expanded pool or something?
So there are 2 heroes that you can unlock later.
Oh, okay.
But the default pool of 6, there is not a white man in sight.
That's a change.
Yeah. There is actually 2 black women. In a space with games like Overwatch, which have struggled to put black women in the game. Mm-hmm. Like, there are 2 black women in this game. That feels, like, notable. There is a character who is Pacifica. Mm-hmm. And has, like, Pacifica markings on his armor. He's gay also. Like, there is a non-binary character.
Where does all that extra information come from? Like, is it clear in game, or is it from extra? Like,
there's
outside the game
bios and stuff outside of the game that make this clear.
Okay.
Gibraltar is the Pacifica man, and he has a bio which indicates that he has a boyfriend, which is really, really good. And Bloodhound has been confirmed outside of the game and outside of the context of bios. Their gender on their bio is marked as like question mark. And developers have independently confirmed that Bloodhound is non-binary, which is really cool.
Hmm.
They were designed to be genderless. They actually have a somewhat androgynous voice as well. This game is real good. The representation that we're seeing here doesn't come across as like cheap or pandering either. It just exists. It's great. So in addition to all that like smart squad play and communication and all of these great character designs and all this unique stuff, there's also one more thing that makes it unique.
Mm-hmm.
Battle Royales, I think one of its biggest kind of downsides is if you're playing in squads, if you get eliminated and aren't revived, then you're actually out. And so you just kind of have to watch the squad finish the match. Apex Legends has made that so it's not the case. You can respawn your teammates after they go down.
Go down as in like fully,
as in
out,
like
not
fully
like a drop to one knee, you can still shoot a pistol kind of thing that a lot of games have.
Yeah, not like that, like fully eliminated. Can't be revived, that sort of situation, but they can be respawned. The way that you do this is if you can get to their body, you can retrieve their banner. And if you take that to one of several fixed points on the map that are respawn points, and you have to use it, you have to use the banner on that point, then your teammates will respawn. Once you do that, that point is also locked out for anybody else. Like, every respawn point has one use, but it means that even if you are down to just one person in your squad, if they can get to your bodies and then escape by some means, then your entire squad can come back.
It's changed the gameplay quite a lot. If you're the only one left, it no longer feels like you have to give up.
Exactly. It means that you can think a little bit more creatively and see, like, okay, how can I actually get us all out of this situation and get us back into the game?
Can your allies waiting for respawn spectate and help you out?
Yes, they can still spectate.
Also, I've just been Googling Gibraltar, and it looks like it hasn't been confirmed whether he's gay or bi.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. He is queer nonetheless.
Yeah.
Which is, again, just really, really positive. This whole game is, like I said, it's been making me feel real good all week. I have had an absolute blast playing this game. It does so many smart things for the genre, and there's more coming. Like, they have confirmed, I think, 4 seasons of stuff that they have planned.
Do you know what a season means in this sort of context?
3 months.
But, like, what sort of content?
So, it looks like what they have done is each season, starting in March, is when the first season's actually going to start.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have a battle pass, kind of like Fortnite has, where you'll have like cosmetic items that you can continue to play the game and progress and unlock. There will be new heroes every season.
That's what I was mainly wondering about, if they'd be adding new characters. Nice.
Yes. They'll be adding new heroes every season by the looks of things.
Cool.
They will be adding new weapons and new attachments and loot and all manner of things each season as well. So it's just, they've got a whole ton of stuff ready to go by the looks of things.
What's your impression been on the balancing of the characters they have so far?
I think that they are all really well balanced.
Nice. I mean, the fact that you hadn't mentioned it made me assume by default that they would be, because balance is hopefully the sort of thing you only notice when it's gone wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Every character has really, really useful utility, and I don't think that there's any one character who is, like too powerful or in a bad spot. Their utility is all just pretty solid.
Do they fill into? Do they fall into the general sort of niches that we see in games like Overwatch, or are they more generalized than that? Like, do you have a healer character sort of thing?
Yes, there actually is. So
Yeah.
Lifeline has Lifeline. Her utility is she's got a combat drone that heals area of effect,
Mm-hmm.
and she also has a care package that she can drop in as her ultimate. So when she calls that down, that's free armor and attachments and loot, but it also potentially exposes your position.
Right.
When reviving, she also passively deploys a shield in front of her. So
That sounds handy.
yeah, like Lifeline has a ton of really great healer utility there. You also have characters like Bloodhound, who's the aforementioned non-binary character.
Mm-hmm.
They have a tracking ability, so they can see, oh, this door was opened a couple minutes ago.
Oh.
They can see that sort of information and see like how old, old footsteps. Someone slid here down the hill.
Oh, that's really cool to give characters that sort of insight.
Yeah,
Do you know what the UI is like
really in depth
when you're seeing that?
Yeah, it's little indicators showing the type of action, and then as you get closer, it gives you more information. So it says like how old that indicator is.
And it's pretty clear, like this means open the door, this means slide, kind of thing.
Yep.
Cool.
It is very clear about that. Then there's also some more like offensive utility. Bangalore it just has kind of an airstrike utility that she can call in.
So is that two different characters now that are named after places? Gibraltar and Bangalore.
Yeah, Gibraltar and Bangalore, yeah.
Is it just those two? Seems
I think
like a
it is
theme
just
is
those
all.
two.
Okay.
Because you've got those two, you've got Bloodhound, Lifeline, Pathfinder, whose utility is zip lines.
Mm-hmm.
He's a cool robot that can shoot out a zip line that can go a couple 100 meters, so you can really cover some distance that way. I had a really cool moment using him where I was stuck in a tunnel with my squad, and we needed to get to the high ground because we were in the last circle and there was one squad left. And so from the tunnel, I created a zip line up to a really, really high building that was overwatching the entire circle. And so
the circle is the bit that you have to stay inside?
The bit you have to stay inside, yes. So we were able to deploy onto that high ground like instantly and take control of the situation. It was a really cool moment. It didn't end up panning out well for us because we got flanked pretty hard, but it was really interesting to have that moment where we were all sitting in that tunnel, and then I deployed a zip line up to a really tall building, and it was like, okay, everyone ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3, and we all go up at the same time.
Nice.
It was really good. I'm having an absolute blast at this game.
Who's your favorite character to play?
My favorite character to play right now is just Bangalore. I like the offensive utility that she offers, but Pathfinder is a solid second there.
Cool.
Ash has been playing Wraith, who can create portals. And so she can go she can go invisible for a few seconds, allowing her to like sneak up and get up close, start using shotguns. Can't be hurt while doing that as well, I believe.
It's a nice defensive and offensive ability then.
Yeah, exactly. As well as creating portals that you can go between relatively quickly. So you could theoretically, get a flank, get some damage in, and then retreat into the portal and take up a better position at a longer range.
Can people follow you through the portals?
Yes, other people can follow you through the portals.
Okay.
I think that covers a lot. That covers a lot of the heroes. Gibraltar has just a big shield that you can deploy. Very defense oriented, and who's the last character that I haven't covered?
Caustic. I've just been looking at
Oh
the
yeah,
list.
there's Caustic who's a trapper class. He's apparently a bit experimental because
Okay.
they want to know like how traps and stuff are going to work in the flow of this game.
Hmm.
So he's not a default unlock. And then there's Mirage, who can create holographic clones.
Oh yeah.
So distraction class, basically.
Cool.
All up though, like I'm real happy with how this game has been implemented, and I'm excited to see how it evolves over the next few months because this game has had a really good effect on me, I'd say. I really enjoy what it is going for, and I think that even if you were bummed out by the fact that, oh, Respawn is not necessarily doing Titanfall 3, and development on that got folded into making Apex Legends, even if you think you're going to miss wall running in Titans, this game is still worth, I think, exploring. It might be a really good introduction point to Battle Royale for people who have never played in the genre at all.
Nice. I think I'm still going to stay away just because Battle Royale is really not my thing, but I'll be very interested to see what sort of cultural impact it has, like compared with Overwatch and Fortnite, and what new characters they come up with.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see how that character select screen evolves over time. Because so far, so good.
Hmm.
Picking heroes is like really hype too. Like just the process of selecting your hero and seeing them in full screen, and they have like a line that they say when you pick them.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like it's really exciting.
Nice.
Good. It's a good game. This is a good game. I highly recommend anybody pick this up. Which is a definite contrast to Anthem, the other big thing that EA is doing.
Yeah, I do hope that, like I said, I'm buying it expecting it to not be amazing at start, but I know I'll enjoy the part of it that's already there. But I still hope that it surprises me positively at the start. And
I
if
hope
not,
so
I'm sure it
too.
will get better over time.
Exactly. Yeah. I really hope that that game is good. I hope that anybody who is playing it uh, enjoys it. But I personally am recommending, hey, maybe wait like a few months and
Yeah.
watch how that one goes. All right, and with that, I actually only have one more thing to talk about, and that is Red Dead.
So what more have you found in there? Because you were pretty close to just full on finishing that game, right?
Yes, I am in part 2 of the epilogue now. Um, I stumbled upon a random event in which someone was talking about a treasure map. They took a look out at the kind of landscape and said, "Oh, I'm close to whatever this treasure map is." And so, apologies to the poor bastard, but I had to know what this treasure map was, so I did rob them.
I
um,
have had the exact same event, and me too.
I had to know. Um, it was really interesting how that event was placed too, because it seemed 100% deliberate. The guy was looking with binoculars out at what would be the first location on that treasure map.
I didn't notice that specifically, but I found I was pretty close already to the location I needed to be.
Yeah, I noticed that specifically when I saw the event.
Mm-hmm.
This is the high stakes treasure map for those wondering. So it was really interesting because he said, oh, I thought when I got the map, I thought, oh, he said I'm really close. Like I wonder if I take a look at this map. Oh, wait, I think that's like right out there.
Mm.
I think it's just out that way. And sure enough, like I looked and I was like, aha, I found the first spot. Um, so I went there and I got the second stage, which I happened to recognize because I think I think I was just doing some exploring at one point and just kind of riding around the world. I found an old abandoned cabin when I was doing the exploring, and I remember there was a particular landmark there.
That's
So
finding that second map is as far as I've gotten this, but keep going.
yes,
I've
I'm not
got that
I'm
far
not
as
going
well.
to spoil the locations.
Sure, I can't remember what the map looked like. I might have recognized it as well, but I think I stopped my session at that point.
Ah, okay. So just by pure happenstance, though, I managed to remember. Oh, I remember this location. I remember seeing this weird thing, and so I went up and I took care of that business, and then found the third spot as well. It was all just locations that I like happened to half remember, which speaks
Nice.
to like how the world is designed and
Mm.
like how memorable all these locations are that I was able to pick them out from the crowd. And I think that now that I think I have a couple of treasure maps that I've just found through the world as well that I just need to take another look at and see if I can remember those locations.
I have one other map that I've had since like the start of the game, and I know the kind of area it must be in, but I just haven't been able to find where it is. I don't want to look it up. I want to find it one day.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
It's been annoying having played this much of the game and never having spotted it, despite like having it in the back of my head for ages.
I should probably just double check my maps. It's really cool to see that it's really cool to have something like that evolve out of your play session though. Like I was not expecting to do that. I was
Yeah.
expecting to like go and do a mission, and then I saw like I had this random event happen, and I followed up on it, and spent a whole extra hour just doing this random thing that I found in the world, and it was really good.
Nice.
I love that sort of moment,
Yeah.
and RDR is good about giving me those, and that's kind of all I want to contribute about RDR this week. I don't have much new to say,
Fair
but
enough.
I want to say at the very least that the way that it can kind of encourage you to go do weird off kilter things in the world like that, and just kind of explore it in interesting ways. I think that is interesting.
There's actually an article I read this week that I want to recommend as well. It's by Stephen Wilds on Polygon, which we'll link to in the show notes. But it is about the accessibility of Red Dead Redemption 2 to people with poor vision or reduced eyesight, which I found really interesting. So I know a lot of games have now got like color blindness modes, but a lot of what and UI scaling and stuff, but a lot of what he was describing as causing difficulty for him was lack of contrast. The game's map was actually one of the things he highlighted with its kind of, pencil scrawled text and stuff, which I thought was really cool, but obviously was difficult for him to read. But the Deadeye mode when you have in slow motion to shoot things,
Yep.
the sepia overtone it puts over everything.
Yep.
Unsurprisingly, it turns out that makes it really hard to see if you really have problems.
Huh.
Yeah. He was also talking
Weird.
about how the tracking where you're in your like eagle eye mode and it has the like blue lines for the tracks. When you're first introduced to that at the very start of the game, it's pale blue over snow, which again is very hard to see. It was just interesting to read his perspective. I'd recommend going to read the email. Email? I'd recommend going to read the article. But I don't think I've seen contrast as an accessibility option in many games. I do remember seeing one 2D fighting game that I can't remember the name of, which did have an accessibility option to greatly increase the contrast between the foreground and the background, so the background wouldn't make it hard to see the characters. But I haven't seen it anywhere else, and it'd be interesting to see if Rockstar ends up adjusting any of that or adding extra accessibility options. But I mean, it's an important thing, obviously, so it's always good to read that perspective.
And I will make sure that I provide a link to that in the show notes. With that, shall we wrap up?
Yeah, I think that's both of us done.
Yeah. Well, Mark, what are you looking forward to playing this coming Fortnite?
I reckon Wargroove is probably going to feature quite prominently. Um,
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the Anthem demo has given me kind of a hankering for Monster Hunter, so I might go back and play a little more of that. Um, I know that the actual game comes out the day after our next recording is scheduled, so I won't be playing that in the next fortnight, but I will be after that. Aside from that, I don't know. Might end up playing some more Red Dead and go hunt more of the legendary animals or something, but not sure. Depends on what itch I get. How about you?
So oddly, all this Wargroove discussion has got me thinking about like Wargroove discussion and discussion of just tactics games in a lot of the spaces that I run in general lately has gotten me thinking about a couple of good ones because my embarrassing tactics game secret is I have never finished a tactics game.
I mean, you know how bad I am at finishing games, so
Yeah, but like it feels weird that I haven't done that despite my love for the genre. I don't think
okay.
I've ever actually finished a tactics game.
I think I've finished two ever. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and XCOM 2. I don't think I've ever finished. Oh no, I've also finished Into the Breach, sort of. I've done a complete playthrough.
See, I haven't. I just haven't. And I've been thinking about that and thinking, oh, you know what? Maybe I should like. What sort of game would I enjoy playing right now?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is probably, I think, XCOM 1.
Yeah,
I might
not
go
XCOM
back.
2?
Yeah, I might. Well, I think I just want to play like Enemy Unknown first, and then probably Enemy Within as well, and then I'll go on to 2. I just want to actually finish a tactics game.
Okay,
So
I haven't actually finished XCOM 1, so good luck. I don't know what the last few missions are like.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of PauseCast. Regardless of if you are a patron of the show or not, we do have a big update up on the PauseCast Patreon, which is public for everyone to read. This is just a kind of state of the union post. So we have kind of an update on future releases of the show. We have an update on like what happened while we were kind of having some downtime for a little while. And we also have another thing, which is we are currently searching for a new name. PauseCast as a name no longer feels like it suits the show. We originally conceived it as a way for us to pause and reflect and spend some time on talking about what we've been playing. And the show kind of extends a little bit beyond that now. We've been 100% queer since inception, and we want the name to reflect that. So we're looking for a new name. If you have ideas, we would love to see them on the Patreon post.
Yeah, because naming things is hard.
You can go to patreon.com/podcastshow if you want to read that post and contribute to the discussion there. You can also financially support us there. Even just $1 a month is a huge help, and we will thank you at the end of each episode. And you'll also get a unique role on my personal Discord server, should you choose to join that. Thank you to all of our current patrons: Ash, Dove, Infernal, Corybat, Mary, Moth, and Sammy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of your support of the show. It really means a lot. If you would like to support the show in other ways, we have a couple ways you can do that. If you'd like to just give us a one-time donation to help us cover some costs, you can do that by going to bit.ly/pausecoffee. And that will take you to our coffee page where you can give us a one-time donation. You can also leave us a rating or review on iTunes or your platform of choice, and this helps us out a lot with visibility. So that's really appreciated if you do that. Mark, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at Honest Universe, and I write a blog as well, though not about video games, and not recently, yikes. But that's at honestuniverse.com.
Do you have any exciting projects coming up in that sort of space at the moment?
No, I was hoping to have something to work on over the summer break, but police refused to release the data I asked for, so I'm still fighting for that.
Woof!
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yikes.
How about you? Were you online?
You can find me online at bird.school, and that will take you to my Twitter, which has a bunch of links off to the various other places that I am online. It's probably the easiest way for you to find me. Last but not least, as well, before we go, thank you to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. You can find Leon's music and download some of it for free at soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. And that is going to do it for this episode of PauseCast. Again, thank you for listening, and until next fortnight, see you then.
Bye.